this is Handsome Nerd ASMR, back with another video. And in this video, I want to talk about the different types of hypersensitivity reactions that are important to understand in immunology. So let's get started. There are 4 different types of hypersensitivity reactions, and they're known as type 1, type 2, type 3, and type 4 hypersensitivity reactions. Let's start off with the type 1 hypersensitivity reaction. This is also known as the immediate or allergic hypersensitivity reaction. Now, the important immunoglobulin in this type is the immunoglobulin E, or IgE. And so, the way you can remember this is that type 1 stands for IgE. And the way this works is that the IgE antibodies will bind to the allergens that are detected. And after they bind to the allergens, they're going to cross-link them onto the mast cells and the basophils. So here's an example of one of such cells. And what's going to facilitate these actions are the following mediators, such as histamine, leukotrienes, and prostaglandins. And basically what happens is the mast cells or the basophils will degranulate, and that degranulation will lead to effects such as vasodilation, increased permeability, and bronchoconstriction. Now, the onset of this reaction can happen from seconds to minutes, so it is very quick. That is why it is called immediate hypersensitivity. So some classic examples of reactions associated with type 1 hypersensitivity include anaphylaxis, which is a severe form of allergy, allergic rhinitis, also known as hay fever, asthma, food allergies, and urticaria, also known as hives. Let's talk about type 2 hypersensitivity reaction, also known as antibody-mediated or cytotoxic hypersensitivity reaction. I think a helpful way to remember this is that because it is a type 2 reaction, you can think about IgG and IgM as 2 immunoglobulins working against the cells, hence type 2. So the way this hypersensitivity reaction works is that you have the IgG or the IgM antibodies that will bind to the antigens on the cell surfaces or the extracellular matrix. And you can see that happening over here. And then the main effects are that there's going to be complement activation, so the activation of the complement proteins. That's going to lead to cell lysis, or destruction of the cell. You can also have opsonization, which then leads to the phagocytosis of the cell. And then you have antibody-dependent cellular cytotoxicity, which can be depicted here with T cells being recruited to destroy the cell. And so some examples of type 2 hypersensitivity include autoimmune hemolytic anemia, Goodpasture syndrome, myasthenia gravis, Graves' disease, and any hemolytic disease of the newborn. And in this case, it's the red blood cells that are being destroyed through these mechanisms. Alright, let's talk about type 3 hypersensitivity reaction. This is also known as immune complex mediated hypersensitivity reaction. So, the way this works is that the antigen antibody complexes will form and deposit into tissues. And they can also deposit onto vessel walls. So just remember that. And they can also deposit in kidneys and joints. So there are a lot of places where these immune complex deposits can be found. But what's important to remember is that there's going to be complement activation, so the activation of the complement proteins. And then that's going to lead to the inflammation and tissue damage. And the onset for this can happen from hours to days. And so, some cases where the type 3 hypersensitivity reaction occurs is in systemic lupus erythematosus, or SLE, serum sickness, or Arthus reaction, and post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis. For example, in post-streptococcal glomerulonephritis, the antigen-antibody complexes will be found in the basement membrane. In arthritis, there's going to be complex precipitation and inflammation in a synovial joint. And because these deposits can be found in blood vessels, it's important to remember that vasculitis is associated with a type 3 hypersensitivity reaction. So, one example of this is fibrinoid necrosis, where you have immune complexes and fibrin deposited into the vessel wall, thus triggering inflammation of the blood vessels. Okay, and last but not least, we have the type 4 hypersensitivity reaction. This is also known as delayed type hypersensitivity reaction. So, A1 mnemonic you could potentially use is that type 4 equals T cells. So think about the CD4 T cells as the number 4. You can think about the Roman numeral number 4. Do you remember that type 4 involves T cells? For the immune mechanism, this time we have T lymphocytes, and then the cells involved will include the CD4 plus Th1 cells and the CD8 plus cytotoxic T cells. And unlike the other types of immune hypersensitivity reaction, this type has a delayed onset, so it can last anywhere from 48 to 72 hours. And the main effect will be cytokine-mediated inflammation or direct cell killing by the cytotoxic T cells. And examples of these will include contact dermatitis from poison ivy or nickel, tuberculin skin test, or PBD, type 1 diabetes mellitus, or even multiple sclerosis. And this figure does a nice job of highlighting the mechanism for how the type 4 hypersensitivity reactions work. You can see that we have a CD4 plus helper T cell with the antigen presented, and you have these various cytokines signaling for the ultimate destruction of the tissue and inflammatory signals. And basically what ends up happening is you can have the formation of granulomas, such as in tuberculosis, and this is how the reaction will be induced in your tuberculosis skin test if the patient has been exposed to the Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So, in summary, here's a nice table that outlines the different types of immune hypersensitivity reactions and how they differ. So once again, type 1 hypersensitivity reaction, we have IgE and mast cells. Onset is very quick, in minutes. Examples include allergy and anaphylactic axis. Type 2 involves the IgG and the IgM, and then the onset can last from hours. The key feature of this is it is the antibody versus the cell. And a type 3 hypersensitivity reaction involves the deposition of immune complexes, and the onset can last from hours to days. At this time, it is the deposition of these complexes that distinguishes the type 3 from the type 2 hypersensitivity. And the type 4, it involves T cells specifically. At this time, the onset has a delayed nature, so from 48 to 72 hours. And another key significance of this is that there's no antibodies for type 4, unlike in type 3, in type 2, and type 1. So that's basically it for the difference between these different types of immune hypersensitivity reactions. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please like and subscribe for more ASMR